In Exodus chapter 18, we find the Hebrew people having recently crossed the Red Sea. They've escaped Pharaoh and the Egyptians, and they are now on the edge of the great wilderness wanderings. For a few months, they camp in stages, staying here for a little while, moving, staying here for a little while. In the aftershock of the Exodus, God's great deliverance, the people of Israel begin to grumble. It is in the wilderness, though, that they will be formed into a new community in God. But building new community takes time. Although they've been blessed by God, their own sense of identity has been tested through crisis and thirst and hunger and the fear that comes with an uncertain future. In the wilderness, they begin to experience the ordinary relationship problems that come when humans live together. And so they come to Moses. He sits by himself day in and day out, and he hears the people. He listens to their worries, their conflicts, their desire for justice, and I'm figuring he listens to their grief. Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, comes from Midian and finds them before they enter the big wilderness of Sinai. His father-in-law travels with Moses' wife Zipporah and their children to reunite them with Moses now that the danger of the Egyptians is past. And when Jethro finds Moses, he hears of the story of the Exodus and God's great deliverance, and they both give praise. And then Jethro finds Moses in his place, day in and day out there by himself, judging their disputes of the disputes of the Israelite people, ironing out the wrinkles of a highly stressed people. And Jethro sees Moses in leadership by himself, and he says, "What you are doing is not good. You will surely wear yourself out." Jethro, the priest of Midian, Jethro, the father-in-law, comes in love to Moses and sets him straight. "Surely you're going to wear yourself out, Moses. You can't do this alone. The burden is too heavy." So Jethro tells Moses he needs help and to go appoint men, leaders, judges from the people and have them help carry the load. "Do not walk this path alone," Jethro says. Christian leadership can feel like a lonely business at times. Doesn't anybody else feel as strongly as I do about the Spirit? Doesn't anybody understand how it is that God wants us to live? When wanting affirmation for our hard work, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing others just don't care as much as we do. Or maybe there are those less spiritual thoughts that some of us have. Well, I might as well do it because no one else will. Or maybe you are like many other inspired people, creative people, who find it's easier just to perform a task or bring an idea to life by yourself than to have to explain it. I mean, collaboration can be so exhausting. Plus, why would we want anyone to come and mess up our really perfect idea? The passage from Exodus reminds us that many churches suffer from leadership loneliness. Ministers who feel alone in their work, lay leaders who feel alone in their work. But we cannot lead alone. And in fact, there's never just one leader. We cannot lead alone, especially in this time of great shift. At Shaughnessy Heights, there is a history of great blessing. There is a footprint of love in this community because of this congregation. You have also moved through a time of great discernment, of reflection, of conversation and prayer, and reminding each other of your best values and God's call for more. Here we are now. Now is a time of great excitement, energy, hopefulness, and a time of great promise. But we can't do it alone. I know I can't. I need each and every one of you. So how do we ensure that we can walk together? For the last 4 or 5 years, I've been involved with a really exciting group in Saskatoon called Reconciliation Saskatoon. 98 organizations from all around the city of Saskatoon gathered together to strengthen the work of reconciliation, the great journey of healing here in Canada between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. Early in their time together, the Big Circle, as we call it, Reconciliation Saskatoon, came up with four words to frame their activity. Words and wisdom that would hold them as an organization and help them live out their calls to action. The four themes and activity themes were show up, listen, learn, and share. Show up, listen, learn, and share. I wanted to review those with you myself and maybe piggyback on them. This isn't a sermon about reconciliation work, but I found that the four images lifted up, show up, listen, learn, and share, seemed to speak to me at the beginning of my ministry here at Shaughnessy Heights and our ministry together. Show up. We need to be present to one another. We need to attend Zoom gatherings or online studies or other group activities. It also means bringing our best selves. To show up, to truly show up, means to bring the best of ourselves to each situation when we're together, either online or in person. And of course, when we can't bring our best selves, but we need to do the work together anyway, I find it very helpful for us to announce when we're exhausted, when we've had a tension in our home life, when we're going through a bit of life crisis. It's always good to mention that at a meeting before we enter the work together so that we know each other truly and how we are living and what spirit we are bringing into the gathering or the work that we've gathered for. Listen. First we show up, then we listen. Now, many will tell you, my ears have yet to grow bigger than my mouth, and my ears outnumber my mouth, but I'm trying. I'm still growing. Let's listen to each other's stories. And always a reminder to tell your own story and not others' stories. Stories are very personal and they belong to each individual. But let's listen to each other's stories. Let's share our own stories of life and faith. Let's listen for the Spirit in the ideas of others. Always remembering that listening and hearing are not the same thing, but they are great companions. If we can not just listen, but truly hear each other, we'll be able to walk together. Learn. Show up, listen, learn. I want to learn from you. Where does the Spirit touch the work of Shaughnessy Heights United? Where has God's love moved you as individuals and as a community? I can't wait to learn from you. Learn from you your stories, learn your wisdom, learn about the whole ministry of this wonderful church. And more than that, learn new ministry ideas, new ministry moves, so we continue the journey together and I get to grow. And I hope that I'll be able to offer you something as well, and that we can learn together. Because learning is where we begin to change. This is where words and thoughts and ideas and prayers of others begin to change us and shift us and shape us anew. It'll take patience. Listening always takes patience. Learning always takes patience. And we'll have to allow our assumptions to be challenged. But when we show up, listen, and learn, we will grow in new and wondrous ways. And finally, share. Let's share our learning, share our growing, share our joy, and of course, share our laughter. Share our movement and our blessing with the world. Although most of you have not met Reverend Deb and I, we have, in fact, been on a journey with Shaughnessy Heights United for many months, since November. And already we have been walking together. This walking together has been evidenced by the work of your search team, Megan, Taryn, Dorothy, and James. They caught on to us in early November, and we entered into conversations. We entered into a time of showing up for one another, a time of listening, a time of learning, and a time of sharing. It's a great model, your search team and this whole process, because as we sat with one another in conversation, we would loop back to topics that had been passed earlier in the conversation. We'd loop back and come back at them again, and each and every time we took on a topic for the second or third time, we would open up even better. We'd open up more fully to one another. We'd deepen the conversation. We'd begin to listen and hear, and we'd begin to share honesty in authentic relationship. Show up, listen, learn, and share. These are how we will be able, these tenets, these themes are a great model for how we'll be able to journey together and not be left alone in this great work of this wonderful church, this great work that God has called us all to. And then there are those who helped welcome us this week. Deb and I have been blessed and blessed and blessed by a very well-prepared manse on the inside, beautiful gardens, both vegetable and flowers, and a new lawn that's just sprouting as I speak. And we've been blessed by all of the cards that have been sent, by the pantry food that was left in the house, and by the gifts that have been brought over. We've already begun, you see, Deb and I and you folks of Shaughnessy United Church. We've already begun to learn and to share and to care for one another. Let's keep it going. Let's fall open to one another. Let's find one another in this ministry. And let's fall open to the grace that God has for all of us when we walk together. May it be so. Amen.